Hello, everyone. So welcome to the deep dive webinar for TCO Certified. I'm Nicholas Rydell. I have my colleague Stephen Fuller with me also, who will tell you a lot today about social responsible manufacturing and chemicals. So we already waited a bit here, so I think that most of the attendees have already joined, so I think we can just start immediately. So this is the industry webinar that we are running. We are going to have some Asia workshops in this program of webinars, and we are going to also have another webinar on the later this week on the 12th of April. So let's go ahead and take a look at the schedule for our launch of the new generation TCO Certified. We are currently in the draft period where all the certification for different product categories are out on draft. The projectors and headset certification are going to be released on draft in just a few days. They are almost ready. We have 2 employees going around in Asia currently, visiting manufacturers and brand owners and laboratories and other stakeholders there. It's Martin Söderberg, our Asia manager, and our certification manager, Andreas Rehn. So if you have colleagues in Asia, encourage them to attend these webinars or these workshops together with our partner laboratories. Today, we are going to have a deep dive webinar for supply chain criteria. So these are the social responsible manufacturing and the chemical criteria in particular. And on the 12th of April, we will have more product-related criteria, so that you can decide which webinars you want to attend, depending on the type of topic you're interested in. These are the dates and time for the April workshops in Asia. So currently the team is traveling from Taipei to Japan to have a workshop in Yokohama. On April 16, there will be the Shanghai workshop, April 17, another Shanghai workshop, and April 19, they will be in Shenzhen and explain about the new generation of TCO Certified. So just contact Martin Söderberg if you want to attend the workshop, or if you have any colleagues who want to attend it. Before Stephen take over, I just want to quickly tell you about our new portal that we are introducing together with the new generation of TCO Certified. This is a web portal where you can simplify the tasks of certifying product. It will be possible to upload all the relevant documents for the new generation on this portal. You will be able to check the status of your applications, so you can see how far the laboratory has come in the process of certifying the product. And you can also see the currently certified products in more detail than what you can see on our website today. This will speed up the handling, so you will most likely get your certificates quicker. It will also be a source for data collection that we will use to develop new and better criteria in the future. And we have a plan to introduce a system where you will get benchmarking information of your product that you certified in comparison to all the other products that are TCO certified. So this will be a way to verify how you are positioned regarding sustainability in comparison with your competitors and other products on the market. We will be able to make better reports based on this data also to show all our stakeholders what TCO Certified achieves. This portal will also be a crucial tool to keep track and order of all the factories that are put inside the TCO Certified program. So that's why Stephen Fuller will tell you a bit more about this in the coming slides. So now it's time for the draft criteria overview by Stephen Fuller. There are a lot of criteria in this new draft. We have categorized them in the 3 phases of the product life cycle: the manufacturing phase, the use phase, and the recovery phase. And today we will go through Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, which are the social responsible manufacturing criteria and environmental responsible manufacturing. The other chapters, 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, will be we will discuss them tomorrow on the 12th of April. So over to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Nicholas. So today I'll be going through the social responsible manufacturing mandates, and these cover the supply chain responsibility, supply chain transparency, anti-corruption management system, responsible sourcing of minerals, and finally the processed chemicals new mandate that is coming. So just a few words about the role of TCO Certified Portal for this mandate that Nicholas covered just recently. The required social compliance documentation will in future need to be uploaded to one place, and from the brand and the applicant sources. So this is the online management system we're calling in the criteria document TCO Certified Portal. This is known to test labs and verifiers today as the Certification Handling System, or CHS. We think that this will give a big benefit to each verifier and brand, since all verifiers will have access to the same copy of supporting documents to review. And it will save the brands and applicants the double work of submitting a copy to each approved test lab by giving the labs one place to go to see the supporting documents for compliance review. So that was about the portal. So let's move over to some of the revised changes in the supply chain responsibility mandate. So as I mentioned in the last webinar, the supply chain responsibility keeps the same base requirements today that we have today, which is towards the ILO core conventions, the rights of the child, the local labor and health and safety legislation. But there's one main difference here, that the working hour compliance will be set to a maximum 60-hour working week. And this is irrespective of local law. So this sets one level of compliance for all, instead of many different compliance levels dependent upon where the country of manufacture is. So I'll add here also that in cases when it's considered necessary, working hour data will be required to be submitted to me using the TCO Certified Working Hour template. So this template has become an effective way to monitor continued compliance to the 60-hour rule, and also a good support towards spot checks to risk factories for both TCO development and the brand owners. So the working hour template will demand data on the whole factory for both permanent and temporary workers, including their days off, and isn't limited to certain production lines. In contrast to the mandate, itself, the path towards compliance does, however, have some important changes to mention here. So these points that you see here, 3 and 4, I will cover jointly in the next slide. So we can jump to the next slide. So let's start with the code of conduct and the communication then, and how it is communicated to the supply chain. This will remain as it is now, as an annual review and a verification by an independent social reviewer. So no changes to the code of conduct and communication. A list of all final assembly factories will still be required to be submitted at least once annually by the brand. It is the responsibility of the brand to make sure the list of factories is up to date, and it will be the responsibility of the approved verifier to register the factory information on the TCO Certified Portal. So as presently required, audit dates will need to be given as they are today. The audit dates are given in the template. An additional requirement now is that the audit dates for the management systems for both health and safety and environmental shall be stated on the template. So ISO 14001, which is a very long-standing requirement by TCO Certified that all registered factories must have this certification. What is new is that the requirement that the same factories also have a certified and or audited health and safety management system. So this demand I'll go through later with the health and safety management system in the process chemical mandate. Once a factory is registered on the portal, it becomes part of the TCO Certified Accepted Factory list. It is intended to allow auto certifying brands to have access to the list of factories to see those suppliers that can be considered a better choice to do business with. How brands can see this is through our new risk category strategy that is intended to put performance pressure on the supplier to implement improvements. So this is the section covering the implementation of the code of conduct at factory level. So as I've said, it is the responsibility of the brand to make sure that all final assembly factories are registered on the portal. Additionally, it is their responsibility to make sure the latest audit reports, corrective action plans, and closure audits are also uploaded for every one of their final assembly factories on the portal. So looking more at the audit reports, corrective action plans, and closure audits, the type of audit reports that are accepted are to be S8000, RBA, which is the old EICC, and BSCI audits. This limited number of accepted audit types is to avoid confusion by reviewers and to make it easier to compare levels of social compliance between the factories. But if any applicant wishes to use a program other than these, then it needs to be first quality assessed by an independent social reviewer and approved by TCO Development before it can be used on a factory. So these quality assessment points, the social reviewer will assess. These points can be found under the clarifications part of the draft document. Every factory registered on the portal is considered a high risk of non-compliance to TCO certified social criteria until it's proven otherwise through a risk assessment. The initial risk setting is set by the first audit report being uploaded to the portal at registration. We have decided that this initial audit can be up to 3 years old. After the initial risk setting for a registered factory, no audit submitted as proof may be more than 12 months old. So using the new risk category diagram 212, as a guideline, factories will be set a risk category of 1, 2, or 3. These numbers are intended to reflect the factory's frequency in years during which a factory must conduct and upload the next independent factory audit report, corrective action plan, and closure audit for the same factory to the portal. Less audit fatigue. This will mean less audit fatigue for those that achieve a better rating, since there will be performance benefits of the audit frequency. So those that work better towards closing non-conformities will achieve a better rating and get less audit fatigue at the factory. So as said, the factory risk category is set by the initial audit report, corrective action plan, and closure audit results being uploaded to the portal. Those that can show and maintain acceptable closure rates to all non-minor findings to the TCO certified criteria will receive a better ranking of 2 or 3. Factories that have no satisfactory audit report, corrective action plan, or closure audit at registration will be ranked as category 1, the highest rank, the high risk ranking. So category 1 means that you will need to submit an audit report, corrective action plan, and closure audit every year until closure of all non-minor violations is achieved. This doesn't mean a factory can continue as category 1 indefinitely. The factory has a maximum of 24 months to improve their performance rating to at least be able to be ranked as category 2. This means that any factory that has remained at category 1 status for 24 months is regarded as a very high risk and will likely be removed from the accepted factory list. Factories reaching category 2 or 3 rankings will remain on the registered factory list. So this provides an advantage to those that are proactive in closing violations and will give brands with access to the list the possibility to see the ones that are a better choice to do business with. And as you see in this flow diagram, I'll walk you through it just generally to give you an idea of what the risk categories are, how they are set. So at registration, if we start from the top then, at registration, we accept that an SA8000 certified factory anywhere in the world is considered a category 3. A factory that closes all non-minor findings and is situated in a low risk country can also be assumed to be category 3. So category 3 will give the benefit of providing proof every 3rd year. If you don't fulfill that block, then factories that achieve non-minor closure and are situated in high-risk countries can be assumed to be category 2. So this means that they provide audit proof of closure every 2nd year. Factories that are not considered category 3 or 2 are category 1 and must submit audit proof annually. Category 1 factories have up to 24 months to reach at least category 2 ranking. After 24 months, as you see at the bottom, the factory risks being removed from the accepted factory list if they do not comply to any of these. So then we move on to the next mandate, which is supply chain transparency. This mandate is renamed to supply chain transparency from the present senior management representative. It's the same demand that there be an appointed senior management representative for social criteria at the brand owner company that TCO Development has the contact details to. It also remains the responsibility of the SMR to answer annually the TCO certified self-assessment questionnaire and complete the follow-up interview to verify the answers. The SAQ is a set of questions that assess key areas on how brands manage risks and monitor behavior in their extended supply chains. So the difference now is that the interviews are to be carried out by a 3rd party instead of myself. The interviewer will use the SAQ and guidelines that are being updated at the moment to include additional questions. After the interview, the report that shows the verified benchmark scores on each answer will be shared with the SMR. So it's a responsibility of the SMR to ensure that the portal is up to date and covering name, title, contact details, and the date of the planned or completed SMR interview are also present on the portal. So by being transparent with an independent party, the SAQ and interview are intended to help brands and TCO development gain insight into how they manage their supply chains and identify areas for improvement by comparing their own progress with their competitors. So let's move on to anti-corruption management system now. This is a new mandate in our criteria document. So the intention of this two-part mandate is to verify that brands have a minimum level, which is considered also a very good level, I say, approach to the issue of preventing corruption happening in their business. So since this is a new requirement to TCO Certified, we have decided that the International Chamber of Commerce, ICC, an organization business that helps other business to act responsibly, has created a very good guidelines, or creates several guidelines that outline the minimal elements of a corporate compliance program and what they should include. The requirements in the mandate require the brand owner's anti-corruption program must be considered to at least include the practices stated under Article 10 of the ICC rules on combating corruption. And these are points A to P. And also the ICC guidelines on whistleblowing should be implemented. So compliance to the mandate is declared and must be verified by an independent reviewer. The review will be conducted through the SAQ interviews that I talked about in the supply chain transparency mandate previously. So in all, 18 questions on the brand owner anti-corruption program would need to be completed and must receive approval. So this will be considered an independent evaluation of the company anti-corruption program when this happens. However, as a support for companies wishing to evaluate their anti-corruption programs themselves in preparation for this mandate, I would like to recommend that they go through the ISO 37001 towards this, which is the new anti-corruption assessment from ISO. So the revised mandate for conflict minerals is now called Responsibly Sourced Minerals. This mandate requires 3 parts to be fulfilled instead of the present conflict mineral questionnaire, which will now be removed from the next generation of TCO Certified. So firstly, the brand must have a public policy that is communicated to suppliers, and that states the company will neither directly nor indirectly finance armed groups nor contribute to human rights abuses anywhere specific mining operations present a risk. The policy must also be clear that it is considered to cover conflict minerals and cobalt. The second part is that brands must provide proof of implementing the OECD traceability best practices down their supply chain of high-risk minerals in order to identify risk smelters. This means that the mineral reporting template that brands have been using towards conflict minerals must now at least include an additional mineral such as cobalt, or include cobalt actually as a minimal, since it is considered a very high-risk mineral in the identification presently. The third part is that brands join multi-company initiatives that support international programs providing support to local mining communities. Their IT mineral sourcing has led to human rights abuses. A list of initiatives that either we consider go beyond conflict minerals or are global in their support are listed in the criteria document, and they include the European Partnership for Responsible Minerals, which is the EPRM, the Responsible Mineral Initiative, the RMI, which is a part of the RBA system programs, and the Responsible Cobalt Initiative. But this list shouldn't be considered limited to only these 3 alternatives, since new alternatives can start up during the period. So we welcome new proposals to be added to the list anytime, and these will be considered for approval on a case-by-case basis. You can see that we've given clear verification guidelines covering minimal compliance levels to all 3 parts in the criteria document. And these are covering policy, risk, identification, and multi-stakeholder initiatives. And also a new mandate here is process chemicals. So these cover health and safety management systems, declaring cleaners and solvents used in production lines at final assembly plants, and providing minimal level of personal protective equipment according to the safety data sheet that follows hazardous chemicals to the supplier. So for the purposes of this first mandate to cover process chemicals that we're doing, we're defining them as being cleaner and solvent substances used in the manufacturing process during the final assembly of the certified product. So brands today work with their own restricted substance lists of established high toxic chemicals in their factory lines. These are the so-called MRSLs, manufacturing restricted substance lists. So no MRSL, however, is created equal. This means that a chemical may be restricted from a manufacturing line, but not eliminated from the whole factory, since the substance restriction is often dependent on whether a substance is important for a particular brand production line or not. So if we want to get toxic chemicals phased out completely out of manufacturing and not replaced by equally toxic ones, then safer substitutes need to be identified. So we have decided to set a minimum level of compliance for each final assembly factory registered on the TCO Certified Accepted Factory list that they must fulfill. So each factory must, if we look at the first part here, provide workers with a safe working environment and trained personnel in chemical management. So we have for a long time demanded every factory be certified to ISO 14001, the environmental management system. And we will now complement this with demanding a certified or audited health and safety management system. This is verified easiest by submitting the OSAS 18001 or soon to be replacing it, the ISO 45001 certificate to the TCO Certified Portal. If the factory doesn't have a certificate, they will need to prove compliance with an audit report that has covered health and safety management system at their factory. The second part, declaring cleaners and solvents, we have the chemical management template, and this can be downloaded from the TCO Certified website. So to start the process for identifying safer substances, we need to identify what cleaner products are being used by the IT industry. At the same time, we need to find out if workers are receiving training, protection, medical surveillance when they come into contact with the toxic chemicals. Therefore, we will be requiring each final assembly factory to complete a process chemical template that requires information to be submitted on the types of cleaning products used. We will also gather data on exposure protection equipment, the PPE that is provided when toxic chemicals are identified, and the training and the medical surveillance that is provided for the workers. A final part you see in point 3 here of the mandate is that since safer substitution takes time to achieve, we will require that workers must be provided with the recommended levels of personal protection equipment when handling the identified highly hazardous substances. Safety data sheets are a good source of recommendations for the safe use of toxic substances. which is why we will be requiring that at least the SDS recommendations for the PPE are being provided to the workers. So this draft process chemical template, if I can say a few words, also has guidelines that I've created to help you complete the template, and which you will also be able to find on the TCO Certified website. We've also made a translation of the guide in Chinese. So please contact me if you wish to receive that. I have already tested the template with several factories and consider that completion of the template went smoothly and took at most 6 weeks to get the completed template back again. When the template is completed, then starts the work of identifying the highly toxic chemicals, their areas of use, and identifying if safer alternatives for that process are available. Once identified, we have the ambition of feeding back safer alternative or protective information to the industry and sharing best practices, guidelines, and solutions that are created by multi-stakeholder working groups, such as the Clean Electronic Production Network. The Clean, if I could just say a few words about the Clean Electric Production Network, the CEPN. This is a group of experts from industry, government, NGOs, and leading experts working together to develop useful guidelines and solutions such as the Alternative Assessment Guidelines that will help industry move towards best practices of chemical management. I would like to mention here that it's thanks to our and others' ongoing collaboration in the CPN that has been a major inspiration towards a mandate like this being considered for the next generation of TCO Certified. To help industry more, we will try to harmonize this mandate with the work being done by CEPN, all the groups, and when complete, also share with the industry the tools that are developed by the groups in the pursuit of zero exposure of workers to toxic chemicals in the IT supply chain. Ending there, I'll hand you back to Nicholas, who will take you through the environmentally responsible manufacturing.
Thank you, Steve. So finally, in the supply chain chapter, we are also including a criteria connected to the energy consumption in the manufacturing phase. And currently and historically, we have only requested the EMAS or ISO 14001 from the factories, but now we want to look a little bit more at the energy consumption in the manufacturing phase. And as you know, Energy Star is pushing energy efficiency for the product since many years, and the requirements are getting quite tough now, we believe. But for the energy consumption in the manufacturing phase, no one is really doing anything about that on a standardization level. So we would like to see if it's possible to do something there. That energy consumption is regarded to be higher than the energy consumption for the product itself. So it's more urgent to do something there, actually. First, we need to understand a little bit more about how the final assembly factories operate and how the energy consumption looks like for TCO certified products. So we would like the final assembly factories to report 6 parameters to us during this generation of TCO certified. There is no pass or fail here. As long as each factory reports these 6 parameters, you fulfill the requirement. So the first parameter is if the factory has any energy management system. And this is a system to gradually try to reduce energy consumption in the factory. Then we would like to know the total energy consumption for the factory the previous year. So in February each year, each factory should report the total energy consumption of the previous year. Then we would like to know if the factory is using renewable energy, and in that case, how much percent of the total energy that is renewable. Then we have seen from research that the clean room facility, there are a few activities in the factory that consume the most energy. And one of them is the clean room facility with the air conditioning system that consumes a lot of energy. So we would like to know which final assembly factories have in-house clean room facilities. We also would like to know which final assembly factories are using compressed air for the tools at the assembly line, because this is also one of the activities that consume a lot of energy in manufacturing. And finally, if the final assembly factory has reflow PCB soldering in-house. We will collect this data over the 3-year period of this generation of TCO Certified, and then in the next generation 9, we will see if it's possible to develop any criteria regarding this. And as I said, we think that the energy consumption on the product level now has reached quite a good level, and now it's time to look at the manufacturing level, where the real large energy consumption is present. I will quickly go through the different topics that Steve have already mentioned. It will just be a short overview or repeat of Steve's explanation, because I see that we have some extra time here. First of all, Steve talked about supply chain responsibility, and the main change that we've done for this criteria 2.1 supply chain responsibility is that we want to see an audit report from every factory, every final assembly factory. But we can, in this generation, accept an audit interval that is based on the risk level of the factory. So for high risk factory, we want to see a third-party audit every year. For middle risk final assembly factory, we accept to see a third-party audit every 2 years, and for low risk factories, we can see a third-party audit only every 3 years. And we can give you more information. You can also ask Steve directly by email how you can make your factory reduce the risk level so that you get a longer audit interval. There are a lot of things you can do, and it should be possible to achieve the 3-year period for most factories. The next criteria Steve talked about was 2.2 supply chain transparency. And the main change we've done there is that we require that the interview of the SMR is done by the social verifier. So it's no longer done by Steve or us, it's done by the independent third party. And for some of these interviews, we will attend as a observer. For 2.3 anti-corruption, the main change, or it's actually a new criteria, and the main topic of that criteria is that we require the ICC rules on combating corruption, Article 10, point A to P, and the ICC guideline on whistleblowing. And then 2.4, responsible sourcing of minerals. The main change to this criteria that was previously called conflict mineral is that we expanded this policy so that it includes cobalt, And we expanded it to cover the whole world and not only Congo. We also require now that you need to have started the structured work to identify the smelters. So previously, there was no requirement to have started this work, but now we want to see that you started the work to identify your smelters. And finally, Steve talked about 2.5, the process chemicals. And the main important parts of that requirement is that all final assembly factory must have a health and management system, an OSAS system. All final assembly factories must report what cleaners and solvents they are using, and also what protective equipment that is offered to the workers for these cleaners and solvents. So these are the most important parts that Steve talked about. This was the detailed deep dive webinar. We will have a new webinar tomorrow when we will talk about the product related criteria. It will also be a deep dive webinar, and if you have questions on this webinar and want to know more, or if there was some parts of this webinar that was difficult to understand, you can contact Stephen Fuller and you can set up a web meeting with him, and it will be the easiest way for you to understand everything. So then you have dedicated time to go through your questions. Good. So we have not received any questions today that we can talk about now. So basically, I would say that this webinar is finished. You have a link on the slide here where you can go in and ask questions generally to us. You can also comment on the criteria if you find some of them too difficult, or if you think that some of them will not work in practice. And we will reply to every comment and explain to you how we decide to proceed with them. But then I thank all of you for attending the webinar. We will end it now a few minutes earlier, and I hope to see you all tomorrow on the next webinar regarding products. So bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.